Hi everyone. Our subject today is in Arabic Qada wa Qadar or Al Qada wal Qadar. I put it in English as decree and fate. Now it's very popular term attributed to casualties of any kind, normally on the level of people. Now let's start with the definition of each. Decree. In Quran, in Arabic, is qada, from root word verb qada. It means gave order, commanded, decided, as in verse 23, Surah 17. The meaning we can understand it according to Surah 17, verse 23. The verse reads like this: Your Lord has decreed that you worship none but Him, and that you be kind to parents, and so on. It's a very well known ayah and verse that God decreed, which means ordered, decided, gave a judgment or something like this. O Muhammad, it's addressed to Muhammad and to all of us, that you worship none but Him, and that you be kind to your parents, and so on. So this is how the word qada is used in Quran in one verse. And in verse 117, Surah 2, it says, To Him, meaning to Allah, to Him is due the primal origin of heaven and earth. When He decrees a matter, He says to it, Be, and it is. We all know this, kun fayakun in Arabic. عندما يريد أمرا وإذا قضى أمرا فإنما يقول له كن فيكون. قضى, the verb, when he decrees a matter, he says to it, be, and it is. As well in verse 15, Surah 4, which says, But know, by your Lord, they can have no faith until they make you, O Muhammad, judge in all disputes between them and find in themselves no resistance against your decision and accept with full submission. Meaning that whether the Jews or mainly the Jews or others, they find uh, uh, no restraint, they're not bothered to let you judge between them when they dispute and give a decision and accept that decision. Why? Because you'll be judging like in the name of Allah and like their book in the same time, instruction, the same book. But the word here is decision. So this is another meaning or another way uh, of using the qada in Arabic is like a decision, making a decision. Okay, and in verse 60, Surah 56, it says, "We have decreed." Now Allah, it means Allah decreed. We have decreed death to be your common lot, and we are not to be outstripped, which means God kind of created, decreed, which means put in place and uh, made it made it to be the rule that death will be common between all of us, which means we all gonna taste death. Okay. Another verses talk about more or less this meaning as to something settled and finalized and done with. I'm giving you the way the word is used. Probably more than one meaning, of course, and mainly is qada, decree, is like giving, making decision, giving order, commanding, and stuff like this. Now let's go to the other term, fate. Fate is something predetermined, that's the definition of it, predetermined to be expected and is concrete, which means something happening, indispensable. In Quran, in Arabic, the word means qadar, qadar, from root word qaddara, the verb qaddara. It means assess, assume, and estimate values and quantity, or all together, to, to approach to you the meaning, the right meaning. And we're going to see it in verse 49, Surah 54. The verse said, verily we have created all things with divine preordainment of all things before creation, which means before we create something, we prepared or we gave like the notion certain form in preordainment meaning, which means decided. And in verse 3, Surah 87, and who has measured, who has measured. Now, faith is like preordainment before creating that something which is a faith. God was, God did actually uh, 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 gave gave it a kind of a being formally, and who has measured and then guided, which means God is the one who measured kind of everything, all creation, and guided, which means gave it some meaning, some life, gave it some value, and so on. At the end of verse 3 of Surah 65, which says, indeed Allah has set a measure for all things. What I just said in a verse that Allah set a measure for everything, everything that's created, everything that is faithful, everything that's going to happen in advance. We kind of programmed things like this. And as in verse 22 of Surah 77, which says that all this preordainment, okay, is meant for a period of time. This, the verse said at one point, for a period determined, which means for an exact period. Now that we've exposed and explained the two terms, as we find in Quran, we need to understand a new term very much related to them, even mandatory, I should say, which is book. In Arabic, kitab. And this is not any of the holy books or any ordinary book, printed or written words on paper. It is another word of fate or preordainment or measure or any predetermined thing as mentioned in the Quran. I'll explain. Verse 22, Surah 57 says, no calamity befalls on the earth or in yourselves, but is inscribed in the book of decrees before we bring it to existence. Verily, that is easy for Allah. It's exactly what I said. Before it comes to existence, those things God uh, 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 like they existed with God's power before He made them created and before they become, things and elements we're living with or we know, etc. The word book or kitab here means a group of elements programmed as such. When it comes together, those elements, when they come together, causes a bad event, for instance, be it a catastrophe or calamity. Let's take death as an example. If one gets sick and sickness gets complicated, even if medical needs administered and belated the mishap, if the medical pushed back the death somehow, even though complications increase, inviting death to take over at one time, indispensable. These complications are the ingredients to this case of death. Other ingredients might differ a little, could be for other cases, and so on. This is the meaning of kitab in Quran, which is, which is in no way is not happening. It's a must to happen. Very much related are decree, faith, and book, but independently coexisting. Well, this is the actual meaning and the actual definition and use of those terms in the Quran. Now let's go back a little to see how was it understood, how was it implied and explained, those terms. In Muawiyah era, to legalize their assault on power, they spread the word that fate is the will of God and decree is the realization of that will. Meaning, it's God's will realized that Muawiyah and Umayyad should rule the Muslim world in that time, which is politicized, of course, and not true and not in conformity or confirming the Quran. Politics, plain politics, made the term decree and fate look like beneficial to the rule of Muawiyah or justifying the rule of Muawiyah and the Umayyad. Conclusion: the reality and the laws of creation are the qadar, the fate. Okay? The laws of nature, the reality that we see and that we live within, or something like death and catastrophes and, and things like that, are a qadar, are fate, are happening indispensably. Okay? Like sickness and death and injuries and accidents and destruction, even flood and earthquake, etc. Once the causes of an incident come together, happening is a must and a law of divine preordainment. It should happen, no way. While qada is a wise decision, a wise decision. Why? Because it should come from the mind, the reason. It should be rational. Can be sometimes implied by God, as when He said, uh, as He said in the verse whereby we have to be kind to our parents and to worship none but Him. Okay? But it's mainly, I mean, the qada is mainly a human, which means normally is man who takes that decision in deciding to kill someone or not to kill someone, to imprison someone or not imprison someone. That's what they call him judge, and his act is kind of a judgment. That's on the legal level, but on the ordinary level, it can be a decision. Man can take any decision, whether good or bad, and execute that decision. This is this is a qada, a decree. It means he decided. After, make a decision after deliberation, which with certainty of doing or decreeing the right thing or the right decree. It's a wise decision. Now, God forbids killing. Killing causes death. This is fate. Death is fate. God forbids killing. Killing is fate. Killing is death. I mean, killing cause causes fate. Qadar should happen. I mean, if you shoot someone, I mean, this shoot could cause this someone to die. Okay, now death in this or in any other case is a fate. Fate. Okay, men kill one another. This is decree and decision. When one kill the other, or they kill one another, and so on, this is called decision or decree, like we've explained. Knowledge is the key to apply rightfully both terms, which means if you want to decree or receive faith or treat one or the other, you have to be knowledgeable of this or that. I think it's a little bit not complicated, but it's a little bit uh, difficult because of the contradiction in what we've inherited as the meaning of decree and faith, and between what the Quran really meant by them. Thank you.